Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Coscia, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address, but please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled A-N-D, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. Before I explain the following miracles, I think it would be beneficial if I take the time to explain two words, the meaning of 2 words. The first word is inspired. When they first used that word, which is probably thousands of years ago, somebody said, I just got inspired, and the other person said, what do you mean? I never heard that word before. Well, it turns out the word inspired is 2 words. It's the word in, and then the word spired. What it means is the Spirit of God, the Spirit, came into my mind and told me something. That's what an inspiration is. It's an inflow of the Spirit giving us wisdom. So that's the meaning of inspired. The next word is similar. It's the word idea. The word idea is 2 words. It's the word I plus Deo. And Deo is the Latin word for God. Dea is a female expression of the word. So idea is the female expression of an inspiration. The word I and the word Deo means God, Deo, came into my mind, into me. So both words, inspiration and idea, both of them mean that God is coming into our minds and talking to us. And in the history of mankind, you'll find that that is the way that God communicates with most people. I would say about 90% of the time, from my readings and my studies, 90% of the time, that's the way God communicates with most people. All right, so that'll help as we're talking about miracles, because most miracles are happening because we're getting inspired to take actions and do certain things, and that's how we know that it's God that's involved, and all miracles come from God. The first miracle I'd like to tell you about is something that happened while I was writing my first book. Often, as I was writing the first book, I would go for a walk in the park. I had a certain park that I frequented, and I would walk and talk to God, and I'd be inspired. I'd get ideas, and I certainly learned the meaning of those 2 words. That's how he inspired the Bible, by the way. He inspired, he gave ideas and inspirations to the authors of the Bible. So walking and talking with God is the basic way to have communication with him. And while I was doing that, I was walking in the park, and I noticed a woman sitting there reading a book. And as I often do, I approached her and said, I'm writing a book about miracles, and I've talked to many people about miracles over the last 50 years. I've experienced really many miracles in my life, and I really enjoy talking to people about miracles, and I'm just wondering, do you have a miracle or two that you'd like to share, something happened in your life? Well, she got all excited. She looked at me unbelievably, and she said, I was just sitting here pondering, reading this book, and it's reminding me of some amazing miracles I've had in my life. So yes, I have some miracles I'm really impressed by, and I think would be worth sharing if you want to take a few minutes. So I was delighted, and she began to tell me that when she grew up in a family where there were all girls, all daughters. She was one of 4 daughters, and during her life of growing up, she often thought about how wonderful it would have been to have some brothers for many reasons. But one of the cute reasons, she said, was that when she was growing up with girls, they would always bring their friends over, and so she'd meet more and more girls. And she thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if I had brothers, and once in a while they'd bring their friends over and I'd meet some boys. So she laughed about that. That's pretty valuable around prom time, I think, or when you're trying to date someone. So we both laughed a little bit. So she said her desire in life, she had talked to God often about it in prayer, and her desire in life was that when she was married, she would hope that God would send her twin boys, and then as many daughters as God wants to, but she would appreciate having this experience that she often thought would be so splendid, and she thought she'd be an expert at being a mom for boys because she was always looking at it from the other angle. So she did get married, and she got pregnant. Unfortunately, when it was time to deliver the baby, unfortunately and sadly, the baby was stillborn. And I know in my life from relatives I have that it's a very difficult thing for a woman to put up with and cope with. And so she also shared how difficult it was, and she was, depressed for a long time. But eventually she came out of it, and she began looking forward to the future, and she prayed to God and said, geez, Lord, how I hoped so much for twin boys, and this happened, and, I continue to hope for boys, and as many girls as you want to send me, but, your will be done, God. And so she got pregnant again. And I think she said exactly to the day, I might be mistaken, maybe it was close to the day, but I think she said exactly to the day that she said the prayer. 1 year later, she delivered, and turned out she had 2 twin boys, and that was the delivery, and that was pretty exciting. And I got all excited, and she says, yeah, but I'm not done yet. She said, I got pregnant again after that, a couple of years later, and I delivered and gave birth to 2 twin girls. I thought, oh my goodness, is this a miracle and a half or a miracle and a half? So I hope you enjoyed that. All of it, you noticed that she was praying and talking to God, but she certainly got 2 flabbergasting miracles, I would say. The next miracle I'd like to share with you is called a client box story. And I'm a business consultant, and I was giving a presentation on a Monday morning to one of my clients. My main role in consulting is to help businesses solve problems, and so I usually define them and then help them solve them, or they call me because they found a problem and I help them resolve them by meeting and talking about things about it. So I met with them on this particular day, and I went on a Monday morning, and when I got there, I had a meeting with the president, but unfortunately, his office was a disaster. Normally, his office was very well kept. I had met with him in the past for a couple of years on other projects, but this morning I walk in, Monday morning, and he's got about 49 or 50 boxes strewn all over the office. Papers are hanging out of it all over the floor. He's running around frantic. I was really stunned. I said, what's happening? And he said, Tony, this was Monday morning. He said, Tony, on Friday afternoon, I got a call from my lawyer. I'm being sued for $500,000. I've got to find the original copy of a contract and get it to him by the end of the day here on Monday. Otherwise, I'm going to lose $500,000. So I've been here all weekend. I haven't gone home. I've been in and out of the warehouse, going through all these boxes. I haven't found it yet, and we're running out of time. And while he was telling me this, when you feel compassion for a friend, you take on their misery and their suffering. So I was praying to God about, what can we do? How can I help him? This is a disaster, running out of time. Should I go home? Should I stay here and give the presentation anyway? So there were a lot of questions. And so I was asking God for help, and I got inspired. I had an idea. See, God spoke to us through inspirations. And the inspiration was to look at the box next to my left foot. I couldn't believe it, actually. I just walked into the office. I was right near the entranceway, the door jamb to the office, and just happened to be standing next to a box, but there were many boxes. But the inspiration was to look at the box next to my left foot. So I did. I looked, and there was a yellow folder. There was about maybe 15 folders in that box, but one of them was a yellow plastic one. So I pulled that out, and sure enough, right on top of the folder when I opened it, there was a pile of paper in there, but right on top was the original copy of the contract. So I yelled out to him, I got it, and he was delighted, and that was a stupendous miracle for me to be inspired to just grab the right one. Certainly was one for him, but more stupendous for me. The next miracle I'd like to talk to you about is called box story number 2. Because I had another client and I had met with them, and in the process of solving problems with them, I had mentioned to them this first story, the first client box story. And one of the reasons was that they had some legal problems also they were trying to solve, and they went to all their archives and decided that they're going to have to go through a lot of archives, and they assembled everything, and they told me that they had like 17 boxes to go through, and I thought, well, let me tell you the story about 50 boxes, and I think maybe that'll help you. So I did. I told them and left them with that thought, and we did some other things, and then I left for the day. And about, I think maybe a month and a half later, I was talking to them again about some other things, and I said, I'm so delighted that my client with the boxes solved their problem, and they said, oh, wow, we forgot to tell you. What happened was after you left, we decided to say a prayer and ask God to help us. We enjoyed your story about the 50 boxes, and we did. We got inspired which box to go and open first, and sure enough, Tony, we, after praying and going to the box we were led to go to, the very first box had the material that we were looking for. And I should hasten to add now, that was a wonderful second miracle, but what happened was about a year later I was writing my book, and in the book I wrote the story about this last miracle, about the 17 boxes. And so I wrote both of these stories in the book, and after I finished writing both stories, I was inspired by God to take a break and go for a walk in the park. So I did. I went for a walk in the park, and wouldn't you know, there I am walking in the park, and the second client shows up perfectly on time. As I got out of my car, they showed up, and I said, hey, this is delightful. I mean, you know what happened? I just finished writing the story about your boxes, the 17 boxes in my book. And they said, Tony, it wasn't 17 boxes, Tony. It was 70 boxes. 70 boxes, not 17. And I thought, oh, my God, that's why God inspired me to go take a walk just now. So this is a really amazing, glorious miracle, isn't it? I was writing the book. I had typed 17 boxes. I got inspired to stop and take a walk in the park. And when I get there, there's the person about the 17 boxes. That client just happens to arrive at the same time I did. And I'm telling them about the 17 boxes, and they say, Tony, it wasn't 17 boxes, it was 70 boxes. So I hope you're getting from these miracle stories that God is very much involved. He inspires us what to do. He makes things happen. He nudges us and prompts us to do things like go take a walk in the park. He gets other people to arrive at the same time. It's absolutely flabbergasting. And if you re-listen to this story again, of the stories I've told you today, I think you'll notice that God has been involved in every single one of them, either inspiring the actions I would take or inspiring what happened after I took the actions. I hope you will join us next week. Thank you very much for tuning in today.
My sweet Lord, my Lord. God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.